Hey guys, this is Nate from MMO Play, introducing Danny Rand, aka the Iron Fist, Mystic Monk, Clencher of Butt Cheeks, and not so Immortal Weapon as forum goers have lovingly labeled him, or, depending on the player, mislabeled him. I have not yet learned the secret of their tanky ways, but then I also don't claim to be the metaist of metagamers. Showing off his two costumes currently in-game here that came with his launch, more to come soon. The white costume, which I believe is his newer one in the comics, is his default costume, while the green is a separate alternate costume and the one that I main because tradition. A bit of history for those that don't know. Iron Fist, who I have deemed iffy based on my ability to play him correctly, hails from the eternal city of Kun? Tibet, where things happened, culminating in a fight with Flaming Gecko Shulao the Undying, whom he promptly killed, and now he's Uber. Lots of other stuff happened, additional history, blah blah blah, leading him to eventually join up with fellow heroes for hire members like Luke Cage, Colleen Wing, Misty Knight, who, cross your fingers, will one day make a playable appearance in the game, and for a short time Jessica Jones, which is why he may supposedly be getting his own Netflix show sometime soon. Keep an eye open for that because, oh my god, have you seen them? They're so good. In Marvel Heroes, he debuted as a summon for playable Luke Cage before eventually, after much anticipating, becoming a playable character himself. Now, this is where things get iffy. By all accounts, he's a good character. He has insane damage, high potential for defensive gearing, gorgeous skill animations, and really great top-notch voice acting. The problem? Well, that depends on the player, but overall the consensus between those that both love and hate him is that no amount of defense is ever really enough, and he's got an incredibly high skill ceiling due to the micromanagement of his buffs, his stances, and his unique chi mechanic. My Iron Fist is only in moderate gear, not exactly top tier, but good enough to get me through the Cosmic Trial without too much trouble, and get my defenses to the 60+% range with upwards of 25k health, and yet, I've had a really rough time keeping this bugger alive in zones like Cosmic Midtown or Danger Room, far more than even other melee characters without half of that defensive aptitude such as Magic or Kitty Pryde. There is a fair trade-off though. Even in mediocre gear, I'm seeing crits as high as 14 million on Iron Fist's signature, which, after activating his ultimate, has no cooldown. That's insane. What this tells me is that Iffy is a high-risk but high-reward character, which for some makes him a great addition to the roster. The faction of players within Marvel Heroes seeking a higher degree of challenge would do well to invest their time into Iron Fist. He offers a whole new degree of difficulty in even the most mundane concepts of the game, but with the reward of incredible raw power. So, in my mediocreness, I have sought the wisdom of fellow forum goers attempting to L2P, but regardless of what I tried, Iffy's just too complicated for my clumsy fingers. Playing him felt like being back in the days of attempting and miserably failing to master fighters like Guilty Gear, where timing is key and there are just too many variables to keep in mind at once. I have to pay attention to my chi, my cooldowns, my power bar, the enemy's warning tells, the ads they're summoning, all while being in melee range and thus subject to the brutest of a boss's brute force. By the end of my experience playing him, I desperately just wanted a fireball I could chuck and be done with the huge ARPG crowds of monsters, given that this is an ARPG and huge crowds of monsters are kind of par for the course, and where Iron Fist absolutely excels at bringing down bosses, he also fails miserably at containing crowds, with very few AoE options, most of which are either lackluster or on heavy cooldown. In the hands of someone who is quicker on the draw, I could see Iron Fist being one of those characters that has the community screaming for nerfs, but given the difficulty playing him, I'd say more power to them. For experienced players looking for a character that will take time to master but come with the reward of doing so, Iron Fist is who I'd recommend they look to. For newer players, however, or even just a casual gamer, I'd probably recommend one of the more user-friendly melee experiences like Kitty Pryde, Hulk, or, following his upcoming review, Deadpool. So you can see here that I'm heading into a fight with the Mega Sentinel, which is one of the fights in Midtown Manhattan. This is in Cosmic Manhattan, and here, in general, I do pretty well, though some of the spikier damage from people really kind of takes me down. But even then, the real problem comes in the addition of all of the excessive spawning mobs, and for most characters this is not a problem. Iron Fist just seems to come very ill equipped to deal with them, and the sad part is that bosses, in general, even though I'm going to be heading into a video of a boss that just kicks my ass, but in general, the bosses are not the problem. It's the additional, waves and waves of ranged and melee mobs that are, kind of nickel and diming your health to nothing. And because Iron Fist's skill set is so focused on single target damage with all of his AoEs basically doing just kind of like a debuff or a sustain, but no real area clearing. So in higher end content where even basic mobs do quite a bit of damage, Iron Fist seems to be constantly in danger.
To ribbons.
So here is that boss fight I was talking about. This is me against Lady Deathstrike. I'm using a dual stance build in order to keep Chi Burst up perpetually to increase some of my modifiers like my crit damage and my health, and yet this is a lower tier chip. This is only a green, so this should be relatively easy, and yet even with that 60% mitigation, she's killing me in one hit. Now, granted, she has Enrage Field, which is a modifier some bosses can get that increases your damage, but only when that red circle appears around her. Every other time, her damage should be relatively normal, and even outside of that circle, she's still doing far more damage than I, as a melee player, can chance, and thus that makes it very difficult to get close to her to do any real damage. And so I recorded myself dying several times to show that this isn't just in my head. He really is taking ridiculous amounts of damage. Now, imagine this across having, 20, 30 mobs around you also shooting you at the same time. So after that, I decided to run one more instance for the video. This time is technically a much more difficult chip. This is a blue chip, even though that by all accounts should still be relatively easy compared to the next tiers, which are purple and cosmic. But ironically, I actually found this one to be much easier, despite the fact that it's AIM, which are some of the most difficult enemies in the game because their energy damage doesn't seem to be very well defended against across the entire roster. So everybody has to be really careful when taking these guys on. But I wanted to show some of the gameplay here, especially outside of boss battles where I'm surrounded by enemies. And you can see I do fairly well until I run into some of the heavier hitters. And then we get to the boss fight of that chip, which is a living laser with the extra affix that forces me to fight two of them at the same time. Now, he's kind of a pain in the butt fight for any melee just because he teleports around, but overall I think I do pretty well. I actually had quite a bit of fun because I had to sort of stay on my toes, but I never felt like it was outside of what I was capable of doing. The only issue I really had is that I have to be realistic and assess that I would not have had to work this hard on any other character for just a blue chip. I'm going to go through his skill trees to give a sense of the various options he has. His stances change the bonus effect of certain skills, and Chi Overload extends their specialties even further, but going through the potential combinations would easily double the length of this video, so I would encourage players to peruse his official forums and see the way that other players build him. His first tree is his martial arts tree, which contains most of the melee combat abilities and his exceptionally powerful signature ability. I paused briefly over the description of each skill before using it, so if you'd like to read the description, feel free to pause the video. The second tree, Fighting Focus, focuses on his stances, which, in addition to doing damage themselves, also change the effect of the respective skill. For instance, 7 Armies Sundered gains additional hits while in Leopard stance. With Chi Overload set to Grandmaster, you can effectively utilize a pure stance swapping build for constant heavy buffs, and forego the combat abilities completely. Finally, Chi Control, his third tree, which are where his AoE and Chi abilities, such as they are, can be found. One of my favorite skills, the terribly named Black Poison Touch, along with Serpent Stance, leaves behind a miasmic cloud to continually damage targets while I run away like the squishy monk that I am. Last but not least, Iffy's ultimate, Spirit of Shu Lao, where he calls upon the dude he pawned for phenomenal cosmic power. Not sure how he worked that one out, but good for him. And thus ends the video with pretty flashing lights and spamming of a skill that would be doing more damage if I hadn't taken all my gear off. Hope you enjoyed the video. Keep a lookout for more Marvel Heroes in-depth roster reviews coming soon.